Brittany, hi, welcome to the Female Startup Club podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for helping me.
I'm so excited to be chatting to you today. How's your day going? Do you have any wins or oh shit moments that are worth sharing?
For today, I would say no. Today was a pretty solid day. It was just a day at my co-manufacturer. Just trying to get a lot of our orders out and just helping them streamline as we just moved over probably 2 months ago. And then came back and then just on my computer getting emails done and getting through the day. And then on the road meetings, which are always great.
Yes, so fun. Oh my gosh. How do you like to introduce yourself and what your business is?
So my name is Brittany Charlton. I'm the founder of O Foods. We make allergen-friendly snacks that are vegan and gluten-free. And our whole mission is to create inclusive snacking. So basically snacks that are completely allergen-friendly, vegan, gluten-free. They feel great to you. They're nostalgic. So our edible cookie dough, for example, exactly what you would have when you're younger, when you're like making cookies with your mom or your dad or anyone else in your family. And then you go to like the bowl, but then you get in trouble because it can literally kill you. So now with our edible cookie dough, you're able to just eat it like straight from the jar, which is really cool. But it's like good for you and not going to harm you at all.
Oh my God, yum. I love that. So cool. And I know that your story starts from a moment that potentially could have killed you. I'd love to rewind to that time to understand that moment, what happened, and how this sparked the idea to actually turn it into a business.
So at 18 years old, I was having a family movie night. We had this every Friday. I'd always have M&M peanuts. This Friday was a little different. My throat closed. I ended up in the hospital. And from there, we found out I now had like a peanut and tree nut allergy that I never had before. And so just started to make my own snacks and I liked some products on shelf, but I just knew that to protect myself, I just wanted to make my own stuff. And then from there, my mom was like, hey, you should like share this with other people. And so then I started to share them at like yoga studios, slowly grew into like retail and started launching them and then created the name for the brand and the packaging and everything and kind of just went through the motions of building out what O is today. But it all just started from developing that peanut and tree nut allergy at 18.
That is so crazy. Is that common to just develop an allergy overnight? Like, is that what we're dealing with in the world today?
Whenever I speak to a couple of our consumers, they say like, yeah, I've developed an allergy too. Like some people are like, hey, at 30 years old, I developed an allergy and like, it's not as severe as yours, but you can really develop an allergy at any point. And I don't really, I'm not a scientist, but they say like you can just develop it for any reason, literally be anything. So for me, it was peanut and tree nut. I was always lactose intolerant, but then that turned into like a dairy allergy now. So it's really interesting.
Gosh, what a journey. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Did you see yourself starting a business? Like, were you looking out for ideas, or was this just like not on the cards? You've had this moment and then it's just organically kind of come to life.
So when I get asked that question, I think there's like two parts of it. So when I was younger at daycare, I used to make like GIMP like letters for my friends' parents. They would always ask me to do that. And then it's like a keychain essentially, but it's 3D keychains essentially with this string of the 90s.
Oh, I love that.
And I would make those and then I would sell them to like my friends' parents. And then my dolls had like pillows. So I would make like, my friends were like, oh, can I have pillows too? So my mom would like make a bunch with me at nighttime with like their initials. And then like I would go to daycare and like sell them in the front of the daycare, obviously make some cash or like jean jackets, like get really cool ones. My mom used to like put patches on my clothes and like when we were younger, that was like so cool. I remember being like, okay, I want to create patches. So I'd create like cool patches to then sell to my friends to put on their clothes. And like my daycare just like let us have this like booth at the front. So it was, I think I've always had it in me. And then I went to school and I think school is very, before, now it's a little different, but before it was very like, you're at school to become a doctor, lawyer, something of that kind. It's not like you can run a business. So it was very much so like, what do you want to become? And then I kind of went down the path of like, okay, I want to become a lawyer, and completely forgot about everything I did at daycare and like little things I was building. So then when I had this idea though, one thing my mom has always encouraged me is like, school's always there. Like I finished my schooling that I was doing at the moment and graduated. But she's like, if you ever want to do more schooling, it's always going to be there. But the opportunities that you get in your 20s might not always be there. So you might want to take that on and go see what you can do with that. And so she really encouraged me to like go try different things. And so after I graduated, I was able to try to build O Foods, and yeah.
Wow, shout out to your mom. What a great lady giving you that advice. I love that. I feel like usually parents are on the go to university, go to college, like do all these things. So I love that for you. Very cool. I want to dig into kind of that early part of your story when you were just, making recipes for yourself and making your own snacks. How did you start kind of getting that, getting it to your friends to try, to get it to a point of being like, oh, this is actually a formula that could be turned into something? What was that R&D process like for you?
It was just a lot of like using a mixer, going to like Bulk Barn, and then like coming up with like different recipes that I wanted to try and see. A lot of them didn't work. So like for a while we just had our coconut brownie flavor, and then we iterated with the apple pie. But even the apple pie, it was like, okay, at Bulk Barn I'm buying apple rings, which in the bigger scheme of like producing product, you cannot use apple rings to produce this because you'll have to like cut them all up individually. And obviously as you scale a recipe, it wasn't going to work. So that was really interesting, is like finding, like coming out of Bulk Barn and like finding ingredients and like who are you going to use, who are you going to partner with, what's their price, like can you get the best price possible to be able to scale this product and make it for an amount that makes sense for the scaling company. It was a journey. It was something in terms of like R&Ding, everything has been like my like YouTubing or Googling, and that's been like the biggest thing is like YouTube, Google, I think we're so lucky to grow up in a world where we have that right now. And you can literally just look up anything as long as you put the right keywords in. And I know like even for our edible cookie dough, I was trying to create an edible cookie dough that also turned into a cookie if you baked it. And the first iterations of the cookie dough that I was making, it couldn't turn into a cookie because of the sugar I was using. And then I had to figure out like, how do I use the sugar I want plus another sugar, and like what's the ratio? And it was honestly all on YouTube. So
love the school of YouTube. Love it. In that early phase when you were doing the recipes and the development, what are you doing to kind of like prove out your idea? Are you sharing it with your friends, or are you trying to sell it at that point? Or what did it look like in terms of getting those early kind of customer feedback moments?
I'm always very, I don't say protective, but I'm protective of my ideas normally. So I won't really tell anyone when I'm going to launch an item until I have built it out in my head and I've become so convicted on doing it. And I don't have to worry about like someone swaying me a different way, because I think oftentimes we'll tell people something and then they'll say like, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. And then you kind of like sway the other way. So I kind of wait until I feel like I've worked out pricing, I've worked out just everything in my mind for it. And then once I know that, okay, this is something that's viable, then I start the process of like testing it with a few people. And normally I'll test it with like consumers who don't know me, have no stake in like whether this is like a product on shelf or not, and also have no stake in like if they hurt my feelings or not. And I think that's like the best, because friends and family will sometimes be like, yeah, that tastes great. And then it's not the best thing.
Biased feedback. Yeah, they love you. They want to be happy for you regardless of the product.
Yeah, exactly. Or if it is my product, sometimes I'll go buy something, I'll take out that product and put in mine, and then I'll hand it around to my friends and be like, oh, this is like, like one of my friends' companies, like, I'd love to know what you think. They're like just doing a quick research thing, and they're like, oh, like, let me try that. And then they'll give me real feedback, is what I find. So there's like two folds.
Oh my gosh. That's a tricky game. Have you ever received some like unexpected feedback?
No, I don't. I think all of it's expected. Like, I'm never like, I need people to love this. Like, I want to pick it apart and figure out what I can do better on. Even like our products now, like, they're amazing, but like, how can we make them better? And I'm always asking that question of like, what else do you want to see from us? Like, is it a sugar thing? Is it like ingredients? I don't know. Is it like one ingredient that you want to see gone? Right. So it's just like, they taste great, but it's like, what else can we do to make it even better and keep improving it? So I'm always looking for that feedback. And that's really what I want, is that like genuine feedback of how else I can improve this, because it might be something I've never thought of. And then someone tells me, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually a really good idea. Like, let me go see if I can make that possible.
Absolutely. I always love to ask about the money piece and how much it cost a founder to get started. What did you need to invest to get through kind of R&D, your first batch of products, and the launch?
Okay, so for me, it was a little different just because of how I launched. I launched starting with yoga studios, like really, really small. And then we went to like, retail stores. So I would say for us, it cost me about $5,000 to get started. And that's like from incorporating, but again, incorporating by myself because I already had that like legal background to do that. From there, everything else was like packaging, ordering, and ingredient ordering, just like the travel and shipping and anything like that goes into it. But I'd say it cost me about $5,000 to start. And then once I started getting into retail and had to get like the proper packaging and everything that goes on shelf, that was anywhere between $10,000 to like $20,000.
And when you got started, how were you thinking about the blueprint for you? Were you thinking, oh, I'm just going to bootstrap this as long as possible? Or were you like, I'm going to go out and raise money as soon as possible? What was your kind of approach to building this brand when it came to working capital?
To be honest with you, I was very like, this is like, when I first started, it wasn't like I was doing this because I thought this was like a business. I was still like, this is really fun for me. Like, when I was starting with the first product that we ever created was like an ice cream that was made from like real strawberries. And so I'd go to the field by my house, pick strawberries, and then like make ice cream and then sell them to stores.
Yum!
But obviously, in the grand scheme of things with doing that, like, obviously if I get more orders, I can't just continue to go to the field and like pick. It's not scalable. And then we had like hot chocolate at one point, which is so good. But then again, wasn't scalable from like a perspective of like, Canadians in the summer just don't buy hot chocolate. Moving to our bites, it's really when it changed. With getting started, I knew that I just wanted to like play around and test the market first and like really know my market before I took on someone else's capital. So I didn't take on capital until this year. When I like already knew the market, knew what I was going after, had like distribution with like some really big retailers that I could like actually put money behind to continue to scale. When I really knew, when I felt like I knew what I was doing. So I didn't want to just take on money and then not know what to do with it. And I think had I taken money when I first started, I don't think I'd be here today. Like, I think I would have went under because I wouldn't have been as scrappy as I was and understood like the value of the dollar that I'm being given.
What was that point for you to raise money in terms of like, was it a certain amount of contracts in stores, or was it a certain amount of sales through your website? Or what was that kind of tipping point where you were like, okay, now I feel comfortable and confident that I could go out and raise capital?
It wasn't like revenue or anything like that. It was more of like, okay, I have, for example, we have Walmart Canada. We are like, okay, that is an account we really want to put, dollars behind. We know that consumers love our product at this point. I know who I'm making this product for. I know that if I'm able to fund my, purchase orders and hire the right team behind me and like build out manufacturing with our co-packer, I can like be really successful. And so that's when I was like, okay, this needs to deploy capital. But before it was very like, I'm still testing out. I don't know who my consumer is. I don't know who like I should sell to. I don't know if the retail stores that I'm in are really producing for us and like the best retail stores to be with and partner with. And then I also didn't know how to partner with them really deeply either. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I know how I need to be partnering with this retailer and I know exactly what they expect of me and I know what this needs to look like. For me, at least, it was just being comfortable with knowing what the next steps needed to be and that if I put money on that was going to make sense and that I wasn't going to waste someone's money and that I was going to be able to use it in the best case.
That's so interesting. And this is probably a really stupid question, but how did you actually figure out who your customer was? Like, obviously people are buying and you're kind of like talking to people, but how did you be like, okay, my customer is X?
It was a lot of like, so social media will help you with that. Like if you're online, we don't sell a lot direct, but what we do is a lot of like consumer insights. So we'll say like, hey, do you have children? Like we ask a lot of questions of our like consumers who are online following us, buying from us. And then also asking like someone like, hey, why are you buying it? Even if I'm in a grocery store and I see someone like pick up my product, I'm like, oh, like tell me about that product. Like, what do you like about it? Like, why are you buying it? And kind of just getting like consumer feedback that way too. And oftentimes like they don't know that I'm like the founder. So they'll give me like really good feedback. Or even if I see someone pick it up and put it down, I'm like, oh, like, have you ever tried that? Like, why did you put it down kind of thing? And they'll tell me too. Like one person was like, I don't love maple syrup in my product. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's like really good insight. Whereas I wouldn't have known if I didn't ask. So I'm always someone who's like, if you don't ask, you don't get the answers, and like closed mouths don't get fed. So I'm always like asking questions and like being really curious with people. Even if it makes me uncomfortable, I'm like, I need to know, just asking questions.
That's so interesting. So it's kind of like almost pulling in data from different sources, i.e. social media or an email or something like that, plus anecdotal information when you're just talking to someone and building this multi-dimensional picture of what your consumer is like. And then going out and being like, okay, I know who she is or I know who he is now, and I can take this information to a retailer that sells to that same consumer. And the second part of the question, following off the back, I wanted to ask was, you said, now you know how to do deep partnerships and really partner with the retailers. What does that mean? How has that evolved or what does that look like?
In the very beginning, I would think, okay, this is just going to sell. Like it goes on the shelf and someone must see it. And like, you're just going to make like so much money from just someone just seeing it, which is not the case. And I think a lot of people do that where they'll just put a product down and they're like, okay, people are just going to know about it. A couple of things like to go deep with the retailer would be like social media. Are you promoting it? And like when you're promoting it, like deeply promoting it, not just like posting it and hoping for the best, but like, are you putting ads behind it? Are you, for us on Walmart, we actually partnered with their ad people to really do ads on like walmart.ca, which I had no clue I could even do until I asked like, hey, can we do this? And they're like, yeah, of course. So we do our own social media and then also partnering with like the retailer. The retailer has the consumer sitting there. So like, can you go on their social media and partner with them? We haven't been able to do this with Walmart, but with other retailers, we've been able to like go on their social media, promote our product, really talk about like who we are, what we're doing, and then bring their customers to our page that way as well. I would say like flyer ads, obviously when you have a flyer, someone sees it, it's on sale. That's amazing. Demos are a really big one. So are you like allowing people to see your product? And then the last one is like merchandising. Like, what does it look like on shelf? Are you allowing for the consumer to have like an experience on shelf where it's like, wow, I love this product? Or is it like, this is chaos every single time I see this product on the shelf? And so for us, we take merchandising really seriously. All last week, like we went to like all of the Walmarts in Ontario, like merchandised on shelf. And obviously in a bigger picture, what that will look like is hiring a merchandising team to really help us out there. But right now, being like the feet on the street for us, whether it's like someone in sales or marketing, what that helps us do is understand like the bigger picture as to why someone's buying at Walmart instead of just sending another team to do it. So I think when you have hands on your product at all times and you're able to like really pick up like some really key data, you're able to then see, okay, like why is this selling? How is it selling? And then how do I sell more of it because of what's happening? So, and then also connecting with like each store to be like, how can I create like a display in your store of my product? So when the consumer comes to your store, they see a huge hub of it. Because as consumers, we love seeing like displays of product instead of it just being like one-off, right? So, yeah, those are a couple of things.
They're so great. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Is it you kind of leading those conversations, being like, can we do this? Can we do this? Or does the retailer come to you and be like, do you want to do this?
It's really you that needs to lead that conversation. Sometimes it is the retailer that will say like, hey, do you want to do this? And then you can say yes. But like when you take the initiative to like, you know, send a report out to your buyer with like key insights for them to just see so they don't have to go pull it on their own about your product, or, you know, just take those little like initiatives on your own, it brings back so much more value for you than having just sitting there being like, well, they're going to tell me what I need to do. Because you have to think about it, like my buyer probably has over 10,000 SKUs to look after. And if she has 10,000 or like, let's say 3,000 or even 50, whatever the case is, it's not one or two. So if it's 50 or even 3,000, you can imagine I'm getting lost in between every single person if I don't speak up and ask for what I want. And so I think for me, at least, it's worked best by being like, hey, I would like to do this and this from this date to this date. Is that possible? And then after this date, can we see if this is possible? And then really building out like a storyboard for my buyer being like, okay, once I hit this threshold, I would love to do this. Like, is that possible? And then them being like, if you hit that, yeah, like I'd love to do that with you. I'd love to partner with you on that. And that's very different that's like building your success instead of having someone else build out your success, because it might not be what you want it to look like.
Yes, I love that. That is such good advice. Don't sit around waiting for someone to come to you with the opportunities. Create those opportunities. Go out and pitch them. Go out and work for them. Gosh, I love that. That's great advice. Thank you. I want to go back to, I feel like I skipped ahead a bit. I want to go back to marketing in the beginning. You said you started in the yoga stores. You were kind of doing not scalable types of initiatives with the products and where you were stocking. And then at some point you reached a tipping point with a certain product. I want to kind of focus in on that time frame to understand like, you know, how you were getting the word out there, how you were approaching these stores, and eventually what led to that tipping point.
The beginning of Bites is when I really launched like into yoga studios, and the other products I couldn't do yoga studios. I was more doing like one-off like shows. But with the Bites, I was able to do yoga studios. Yoga studios were great for like finding the consumer as well. You know, those are like moms normally who are going to the grocery store. So like that moms are who we actually cater to. And so it kind of worked out. Now today, what that looks like is more activations than selling to yoga studios. So going in, handing out a free package after, you know, their class, and then they're having to like follow us and, you know, give us a review or whatever that case is. There's different ways to get like scrappy with the bigger picture of marketing. Like even now, we just gave out 300 packages of our snacking bites online to like consumers who wanted to try it. And we just want people to try the product, because we know once they try it, they're probably going to go to a store, see it, pick it up from there. And we've seen that happen with the first time time that we did the trial of 300 packages online, randomly being like, hey, we're giving it out, go to our website, like slide through. And what that gives us is like, it gives us emails, it gives us reviews that we can then take those reviews, move them over to Walmart.ca or any retailer. And then it also gives us more insights. So like we ask people to do a survey to tell us about like the product, the feel in their mouth, like what did they like about it, what did they not like about it. So it gave us a little bit more insight that way too. And that didn't cost me a lot. That cost me, I believe, like $500 to do.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. It's
like small like things, and there's just different ways of like sharing things that you can go about. I'm always about like finding scrappy ideas to get trial going, and then allowing for that to like track back to marketing in any way, which is whether it's like an email coming back to us. We get a lot of SMS subscribers from that as well. And then we also get customers who are like, okay, wow, I love that product. And then come to our website and buy again, or go to the store and buy, or we see an uptick in our numbers. Like when we did the coconut brownie free samples online, when I looked at my store data, I then saw an uptick in like coconut brownie being purchased. So it's just like little things that you can do to kind of bump sales to allow for, but also allowing that trial to happening. And then that marketing. But in the early days, it was really just like, again, going to trade shows, meeting different individuals, and then like tacking on to like influencers online and getting people to try the product for free and then hopefully share it. And that's still very much so like what we do today too. Like it's very like, how can we get the word out without spending like all of our cash? Even though we've raised capital, it's very much so like, how can we be scrappy with every dollar that we have?
If you're giving out like 300 products, you know, in this quarter or this quarter, if you were to look at your overall, like I have X amount of units, what's the percentage that you would use for sampling and kind of freebies?
It really depends on what you're doing. Like if I'm doing a show, I bring a lot more freebies and samples. But something like this, like an activation like this, it's more of like, what's the budget that we want to set on an activation? And then what's the ROI that we believe we're going to get? If we believe that no one's going to be purchasing, or they're going to be purchasing at retail and not so much on our online website, then it's like, okay, what's the activity that we need to do to get to this number in retail? It's not necessarily like a percentage. It's more of like, okay, we probably need to give out or have at least 300 new people try it. And then that will bring us, hopefully, maybe I would say out of 300, maybe 100 people will drop off, not love it. But hopefully 200 people at least love it and then go to the store and buy it and pick it up. And then just figuring out what the conversion rate is from there. I wouldn't say like there's a percentage. It's more of like, what are you willing to give up and what are you okay with giving up? Obviously, in the early days, I couldn't give away 300 units of my product. I think in the early days, we did something like this, and it was more of like, I think I only gave away like 50 units. And that still converted for me, allowing people to try it. But it's like coming up with like small spurts. So now we do it more often where we're like, okay, we're going to do this 300 units probably every other week or so, just to get new consumers trying the product. And then when it no longer works anymore, we'll find another initiative to be doing, like activations in yoga studios or rock climbing places, or just anything that like allows people to like try the product in person. But it's just thinking about like, what is the ROI that you want to see, and then how can you see that, and then coming out from there.
It's so interesting. How have you found, like, you know, obviously we've talked a lot about sampling and in-person activations and demos. How have you found influencer marketing for you? Has that been a channel that's successful, or is it not as successful as RIL sampling?
So how we use influencer marketing is very much so like, we want your best friend to tell you about our brand instead of us telling you about our brand. So I found it to be really great when people are like, we'll have people go to Walmart for us or go to a retailer, and whether it's Healthy Planet, Goodness Me, anyone, and pick up our product and record the whole process of like them going into the store, picking up the product. And I've had so many people be like, that was so cool that someone went to the store and like picked up your product, and they don't see it as like an influencer. They see it as like their friend like just told them about it. Because of how we like run our program, it's not so much like we don't only connect with people who have like the top followers and like that's it. It's like, even if you had like 100 followers, I'd love for you to like, if you love the brand, I'd love to work with you and figure out how you can tell your 100 people you know, about the product, and then expand from there really, and keep going. So it's really just like, how can we become like a company that has like friends telling friends about the product? And that's really how we run our influencer marketing. And I find it to be really effective when we run it that way. When we are running it more like using the top people and like, you know, paying X amount, we don't see return on that. But we definitely see return when it's like, okay, a friend told me about this, and it's operated like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes so much sense as well. Peer-to-peer recommendation versus something that feels like a placement, like an ad.
Like an ad, exactly.
I feel like we've talked a lot about, you know, marketing and that journey for you. Something else we love to touch on the show is the challenges and or maybe the mistakes that have happened that are the things that people don't see on social media. You know, you're obviously massive now. You're in 1,800 stores. You're all over the place. What are the kinds of challenges that you're going through as you build this business?
Well, we're still small. There's building out the team. That's been a challenge, and figuring out like, you know, at every mark, like what piece do I need to move the needle a little bit further, and that's currently like where I'm at right now, is like, how do I continuously build out our dream team of like who we need on there, and really building out the vision as well. And then the next challenge is definitely figuring out the right marketing mix, obviously. So how are we getting consumers to know about the product to a point where they know about it before us even like really telling them about it, and like really getting our messaging across as clearly as possible. So those are like two challenges that I'm working on right now.
Gosh, the marketing mix, I feel like everyone's trying to find the secret sauce for their brand and what that mix looks like. Have you had any success with TikTok? How's TikTok going for you?
We haven't been as consistent as we should be. So it's definitely something that we're going to start to look into for 2023. I know right now we're really focused in on Instagram and YouTube Shorts.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and how to make that work for us as well. You know, we'll be on TikTok, but we're not as consistent as we should be. And once we are consistent, maybe we'll see some great growth from there.
Have you seen any growth on YouTube Shorts?
Yeah, finding like, because YouTube just shows it to like every and anyone, right? We'll get like random messages from so many people, but it's really interesting being on there. It's kind of like a TikTok, to be quite honest with you. In terms of like the videos that you share, you can probably go a little bit longer, and then people will watch it because it's YouTube. I'm also thinking about like long form video, like, you know, how does that perform for some brands, and like showing more behind the scenes of like what we're working on, because a lot of our consumers, like that's what does the best for us, is like that really cool behind the scenes of like our product being mixed, or, you know, people, or like us being at a trade show, or like what goes into going to a trade show.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. I've always been such a big fan of the content of like Ben Francis at Gymshark, you know, going behind the scenes, showing you really how they're building this business. And even Midday Squares does this in a really great way too, you know, showing that side that no one really gets to see. When you think about the lessons that you've learned in this journey so far, is there anything that you wish you knew when you were just starting out that you can share to our listeners who are, you know, in the early stages of building their businesses?
The power of networking, and who you had in your network, and how that could help you in so many facets, whether it be for raising capital, or like just to ask a question to on how to build the next part of your company, or even for hiring, just having like people in your back pocket that you can call on. I know like once I start building my network, once I started to build my network, I was able to like find consultants who were like, yeah, I would love to help you. And really came on board to help me out, whether that be like a mindset coach or a leadership coach, or really just anyone to help me with like sales, marketing, anything. Like this morning, actually, one of my mentors that I've been in contact since last year with, she's like, you told me what you want to achieve, and I thought about it more, and I know this person, and I'm connecting with them, and they've been like in marketing for like 50 years. They're so amazing, and they've worked on like crazy brands, and they would love to talk to you. And so like, now I'm having a meeting with them tomorrow, and I think for me, like those relationships are like priceless, that, if I didn't go out and like make them, there's so many conversations I wouldn't get to have. So I think building your network early is so, so important.
I mean, 100%. Something that, we've heard this come up on the show time and time again about the importance of building network. And it's also something we hear a lot of our listeners talk about. And that's why we have a private network, just going to give it a little plug here, called Magic. But we have women from the show come in and share kind of a blueprint around something very specific. And I know that there's a lot of women in the network who would probably love to talk to you and have advice from you, being 10 steps ahead of where they are. So would love to invite you to come back in there anytime that you're free.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
What does the future look like? What do you want to shout about and tell us about?
The future for us next year is just a lot of US building. So that's like what our team's excited about and working on. And it's just going to the USA and building out our inclusive snacking mission and going from there.
Global expansion. Love it.
Yes.
How exciting. So at the end of every episode, we ask a series of 6 quick questions, some of which we might have covered already, but some of which we might not have. So I just ask them all the same, and then it goes into the part 2 of the episode. Question number 1 is, what's your why? Why do you wake up every single day and work on this business?
My why is around just creating inclusive snacking. So for me, when I was growing up, my mom always made sure that I had like sherbet instead of ice cream if they're having ice cream day at daycare. I never really felt what it was like to be left out because of my food allergies or anything. And so for me, creating inclusive snacking, allowing for people to have snacks regardless of their food allergies or restrictions, is really what gets me up. Like I'm stoked about like what I'm doing and like how we're building out and the products that we're building and making. And yeah, I think that's just like what gets me up, is just that bigger vision of like, how can we continuously build out this bigger vision of inclusive snacking and like what else like can I create possibly. But yeah, just like the bigger vision of what we're doing, and just making it so that people can feel safe, and they don't have to compromise on what they're eating just because they can't find it or anything like that.
Absolutely. Gosh, amazing. Question number 2 is, what's been your favorite marketing moment so far?
I think my favorite marketing moment is coming up in January, February, actually, because it's a really cool activation. But I guess one that we did recently was the launch of our frosting. And I think that was a really cool one, just from like the PR kit that we launched, and then making it accessible to like not only influencers, but like consumers can get a PR kit. Just like building out that whole vision. But our frosting was literally Betty Crocker, but better for you. And it's amazing. So I think that was a really cool marketing moment for us.
Yum. Question number 3 is, what's your go-to business resource at the moment if you're having to think about a book or a podcast or a newsletter that you're learning from?
Masterclass. I recently just bought it for the team to use, and Masterclass has been the biggest thing that I've learned. And it's amazing because they have like everyone there possible that you can learn from. So I would say go get that.
It's really cool, isn't it? I quite liked the Jeff Koons episode or series, whatever you call it. Do you have a favorite? Who did you love?
Yeah, I loved Sarah Blakely was amazing.
Yeah, she was amazing.
The CEO of Starbucks, I cannot remember his name, but he was amazing as well. Just from a standpoint of like speaking about leadership styles and being accountable to your stakeholders and raising capital and everything, and like not to just raise to raise. I thought that was really insightful. But yeah, masterclass all the way.
Love that. Question number 4 is, how do you win the day? What are your AM or PM rituals and habits that keep you feeling happy and successful and motivated?
Something that gets me really motivated in the morning, getting up and going to the gym. I don't do that enough. I get a routine a lot, especially lately in Q4, but going to the gym, just that shot that I get from like getting up, getting on a treadmill and then doing my workout brings me so much joy. And then another thing is 5-minute journal, just taking a minute to be grateful for the things that I'm doing in my life, that so many people want to be doing, and just making sure that I'm like taking that moment out to acknowledge that. And then mind fuel is the third one. So whether that's masterclass, a podcast, or a book, I always try to finish like a book a month.
I love that. Shout out to Alex and Mimi, who are the creators of the 5-minute journal. We're such fans over here at Female Startup Club. Question number 5. What is your worst money mistake and how much did it cost you?
I wouldn't say it was a mistake. I would say anytime that we've created like packaging, those have been interesting because then we might have to throw them out. The most it's cost me was probably like $2,000, which was unfortunate, but it was just more of like I could use it, but we just knew it wasn't converting on shelf. I think that was one mistake, but I cannot remember any other. Honestly, I feel like my days go by so quickly that I often just don't even remember half of the things that go wrong, to be honest with you. I'm always like, go, go, go.
You just breeze on past it. It's the best way to be. And question number 6, last question. What is just a crazy story you can share from building O Foods, good, bad, or ugly?
When we got into Walmart, I think that was a really cool story. But basically, it was like a round table. It was like a dating, like speed dating, essentially, within their headquarters. It's through a company called We Connect International, and they connect you with different like retailers. But when I met our buyer for the category that we wanted to be in, she immediately like stopped our like round table conversation, picked up our bag and like ran it to her buyer that she had for like the category. And then came back and she's like, this needs to launch. It's so cool, so amazing. And just like was so excited about it. And I thought that was like a really cool moment. Until this day, even though she doesn't work, the original person that I connected with, she doesn't work at Walmart anymore, but she's just been an amazing champion. And anytime I see her at a trade show, since she still works in the industry, she's just so excited to see me, and I'm so excited to like share any opportunities that she has with me for anything else that she might want to help us do.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And that goes back to the power of network, the power of relationships. You know, no matter where someone might go on their professional journey after they've left a certain retailer or a certain store, they're still out there cheering for you and championing you and what you're doing. I love that. So cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brittany, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the Female Startup Club podcast and sharing your journey with O Foods and all the cool things that you're up to.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was great.